My rich uncle raised me after my parents deserted me at 13. 15 years later, they appeared grinning at the will reading, certain of millions, until his lawyer revealed the truth and left them shocked. My heart nearly stopped the moment I saw them, standing there at my beloved Uncle Walter's funeral. 15 years of absolute silence, and suddenly my parents, the ones who abandoned me and my little brother, materialized, not to grieve, but to claim their slice of a fortune they didn't earn. My blood ran cold, and I knew right then a storm was brewing, but nothing could have prepared me for the shocking twist Walter had waiting for them. And let me tell you, it was a long time coming. My childhood in Pittsburgh was a grim reality. We lived in a cramped, rotting apartment in a neighborhood where the wail of sirens was our nightly lullaby. My little brother, Tommy, and I shared a pull-out couch, and most nights, our parents were just gone. Dad, Frank, was a construction worker, but his real passion was betting, which usually meant stumbling home drunk, his mood as volatile as a summer storm. One minute he'd be crying, professing his love, the next, he'd be throwing plates because dinner was cold. "You're just like your uncle, always judging me," he'd snap when I dared ask about the rent money. I learned early to become invisible. Mom, Elaine, worked at a makeup counter. She was beautiful, in a brittle, carefully constructed way, always draped in knockoff designer clothes and costume jewelry, dreaming of a glamorous life she believed her children had stolen from her. "I could have been a model," she'd often sigh, "before I got stuck with you two." Tommy was 3 years younger, a gentle soul with asthma and an incredible talent for drawing. From the moment he was born, I appointed myself his protector, shielding him from their anger, making sure he took his medicine, and often finding us food when there was none. I became an expert at stretching a jar of peanut butter, slicing sandwiches into tiny triangles to make them seem more substantial. School was my escape, my ticket out. Mrs. Winters, my 4th grade teacher, saw it, often slipping me granola bars and extra milk. "Don't let anything dim your light, Della." My best friend Lucy's house was my sanctuary, a place with a full fridge and parents who actually showed up. I remember my 8th birthday vividly. My parents forgot. I went to school, trying to pretend I didn't care, but that evening, I found a small package on my pillow wrapped in newspaper comics. Tommy had saved his lunch money for weeks to buy me a plastic bracelet with purple beads and a card made from construction paper scraps. That night, I cried myself to sleep, not from sadness, but from a fierce, pure love for my brother. Then, when I was 10, Uncle Walter arrived. He pulled up in a sleek black car that looked utterly alien on our street. At 35, he was only 7 years older than my father, but he radiated confidence, wearing a tailored suit and a genuine smile. He brought Tommy a remote control car, and for me, a book about women inventors, a gift that felt like he'd somehow looked into my soul. "You remind me of our grandmother," he told me quietly. The tension between him and my father was thick, years of resentment in every clipped sentence. Frank sneered about Walter's college on a silver platter, and Walter, calmly, pointed out that not everyone blames everyone else for their problems. Walter tried to stay in touch, offering to pay for school, for Tommy's medical treatment, even a bigger apartment. But Frank refused every single time, his pride venomous. "We don't need his charity," he'd snarl. "He just wants to show off." As I entered my teens, our home spiraled. Eviction notices piled up, electricity was cut, and the fridge held nothing but condiment packets. Tommy's asthma worsened, his inhaler a luxury we couldn't afford. I even asked my science teacher for a loan, making up a pathetic story. Then one night, I overheard my parents whispering. "We can't keep going like this," Mom hissed. "The landlord's done." "I know a guy," Dad replied. "This is our best option." "What about Walter?" Mom asked. "I'd rather die," Dad said. "Besides, this is temporary." I didn't understand then what best option meant. I wish I had. The day everything changed was deceptively normal, a crisp October Thursday. My 13th birthday had passed unnoticed. Suddenly, Dad announced a weekend trip to visit an old friend. "Pack for a few days," Mom instructed, her expensive perfume overwhelming as she hugged me a little too tightly. Dad avoided my eyes as Pittsburgh disappeared behind the bus window. They brought only one small suitcase for themselves, but insisted Tommy and I packed several changes of clothes. I should have seen the warning signs. 3 hours later, we arrived in Millbrook, a small town I'd never heard of. Dad led us to a modest house where a gray-haired woman, Margaret, waited on the porch. "Kids, this is Margaret," he said. "An old friend." Margaret smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. After a silent dinner, my parents announced they were running to the store. "We'll be back soon," Mom said, applying fresh lipstick. "Be good for Margaret." Tommy sat by the window for hours, his small face pressed against the glass, watching for headlights that never appeared. As bedtime approached, he grew anxious, his breathing labored. "Where are Mom and Dad?" I tried to reassure him, my own stomach a cold knot. "They'll be back by morning." Margaret set up a roll-away bed for us. I lay awake, listening to Tommy's wheezing and the unfamiliar creaks of the strange house. Morning came. No parents. I called their cell phones, but a robotic voice informed me both numbers were disconnected. Margaret busied herself, avoiding my gaze. By the second day, Tommy had a high fever, his asthma flaring without medication. Margaret finally called a doctor who brought an emergency inhaler. As the doctor examined Tommy, I confronted Margaret. "Where are my parents? When are they coming back?" Her shoulders slumped. She looked suddenly older, defeated. "I wasn't going to tell you yet," she said softly, pulling an envelope from a drawer. "Your parents paid me to keep you for a week. They said they'd come back. But..." Inside was a single sheet of paper, Mom's flowing handwriting. "Della and Tommy, we cannot continue like this. You deserve better than what we can provide. Do not try to find us. This is for the best. You will have a better life without us dragging you down." The words blurred through my tears. Asterisk no. No explanation. Just abandonment disguised as sacrifice. Asterisk Margaret called the police. Grim-faced officers, clipboards, questions. Child Protective Services. Then the worst. They were placing us in separate foster homes. Tommy clung to me, sobbing, his small body racked with fear. "You can't take him," I begged. "He needs me. He has asthma. He's afraid of the dark." But my pleas fell on deaf ears. Tommy was placed in Ohio, I in a group home in Millbrook. The last glimpse I had was his pale face in the back window of a social worker's car, his hand pressed against the glass. That night, surrounded by strangers, a coldness settled into my bones. I had lost everything. My parents had abandoned us. I was separated from Tommy. I was utterly, completely alone. 2 weeks passed in a fog. I barely ate, refusing to speak, clutching the book Walter had given me, my only link to a past that wasn't pure pain. My social worker, Miss Reynolds, visited daily. Her patience paid off when she mentioned she'd been trying to locate my Uncle Walter Campbell. I shot upright. "Did you find him?" "We did," she smiled gently. "He's flying in tomorrow." The next day, waiting nervously, I barely recognized Walter when he walked in. His immaculate appearance was disheveled, his eyes red-rimmed. When he saw me, his professional facade crumbled. "Della," he whispered, kneeling before me. "I am so sorry. I had no idea." For the first time since being abandoned, I let myself cry, sobbing into his arms. He held me awkwardly at first, then more confidently as his protective instincts took over. The meeting was tense. Walter's anger at Frank was palpable. My own brother abandoned his children? I knew things were bad, but never imagined this. "Where's Tommy? I want to see him too." Miss Reynolds explained Tommy was in another state, potentially being adopted. Walter's expression hardened. "Unacceptable. They need to be together. I am their uncle, their only living relative. I will take them both." What followed was a crash course in the child welfare system. Reuniting us wouldn't be simple. Walter had to prove he was a suitable guardian for 2 traumatized children. "I don't care what it takes," he told his lawyer that evening. "Hire the best. I want both kids with me by Christmas." While the paperwork churned, Walter rented an apartment nearby, visiting me daily. 3 weeks later, I was released into his temporary custody, and we flew to his Chicago home. It wasn't a house, it was a mansion. My bedroom was bigger than our entire Pittsburgh apartment, with a canopy bed and a walk-in closet already filled with new clothes. "Is this all for me?" I whispered, overwhelmed. "Of course," Walter said, looking uncomfortable. "If you don't like anything, we can change it." That first night, I couldn't sleep. The bed was too soft, the room too quiet without Tommy beside me. I crept downstairs at midnight to find Walter in his office, surrounded by legal papers, talking intensely on the phone about custody. Walter wasn't a natural with children. He'd never married, had no kids, and ran a tech company. He spoke to me formally at first, like a miniature adult, but his genuine desire to help shone through his awkwardness. The house staff, Flora the warm housekeeper, and Mr. Jenkins the dry-witted chauffeur, helped ease the transition. School at an exclusive private academy was another challenge. My classmates planned European vacations. I had a second-hand past and a missing brother. "Why do you live with your uncle?" one girl asked. "Did your parents die?" "They left," I said, watching her eyes widen in disbelief. She couldn't fathom it. The nightmares began. I'd wake screaming for Tommy, convinced he was having an asthma attack. Walter, panicked, would rush in. After the fifth night, he arranged for me to see Dr. Bennett, a child psychologist. This kind, salt-and-pepper-haired woman became my lifeline. "What your parents did says everything about them and nothing about you," she told me. "You didn't cause this. You couldn't have prevented it." Walter attended parenting classes, read books on raising teenagers. He hired tutors, provided everything I needed materially. But the real breakthrough came on my 14th birthday. After a small party with new friends, he handed me a small package. "It's not much," he said awkwardly. Inside was a silver locket with a photo of Tommy and me, taken years ago at a rare family picnic. "How did you get this?" I asked, my voice breaking. "I asked your old neighbors," Walter admitted. "Mrs. Winters had it. I thought you'd want to keep him close until we get him back." That was when the dam broke. I sobbed in Walter's arms, releasing months of pent-up fear and grief. He held me, this time with true confidence. "I'm not trying to replace your parents, Della," he said quietly. "I know I can't, but I promise you I will never leave you. And I will not stop until Tommy is here, too." That night, Walter shared stories about his and Frank's childhood, a harsh father, a promise to their dying mother to look out for Frank, and his repeated failures to help his brother. "I failed him," Walter admitted, "and by extension, I failed you and Tommy." "You're helping now," I said. "That's what matters." 6 months after I moved to Chicago, Walter's private investigator found Tommy in Columbus, Ohio. His foster family was reluctant to give him up. Attachments had formed, but Walter was relentless. Our first visit was supervised. Tommy had grown taller, but was still painfully thin, his eyes too large for his face. When he saw me, he launched himself into my arms, crying, "Della, you came. I knew you'd find me." I held him so tightly he squeaked. His asthma was better managed, his talent for drawing flourishing. Part of me was grateful to his foster parents, even as I resented them for the time they had with him, time I had lost. Walter knelt to Tommy's level. "Are you going to be our new dad?" Tommy asked. Walter glanced at me, then back to Tommy. "I'd like to be your guardian, if that's okay. We can figure out what you want to call me later." As we left, Tommy clung to my hand. "Don't leave me again," he begged. "Never, I promised. Walter's going to bring you home." Walter was true to his word. For 2 agonizing years, he fought the legal system, crossing state lines, battling the foster family's adoption efforts, even restructuring his company to prove his commitment. He renovated a bedroom for Tommy, installed a top-tier air purification system for his asthma. The day Tommy finally came home permanently, I felt a joy I hadn't known since before our abandonment. He was 12, healthier, his creative spirit intact. Walter threw a welcome home party. Balloons, chocolate cake. Finally, the mansion felt like a home. Walter treated us like young adults, explaining decisions, listening to our opinions. He spoke about his company, Campbell Tech Solutions, a cybersecurity firm. "Think of it as a digital security system," he'd explain. I found myself fascinated. Numbers made sense to me. Patterns. Projections. Walter noticed my interest, bringing home simplified business problems for us to discuss. "What would you do in this situation?" he'd ask. Tommy, meanwhile, thrived at his arts-focused middle school. Walter converted a sunroom into a studio for him, his asthma improving dramatically. We formed our own family traditions, Sacred Sunday dinners, summer trips to national parks, volunteering at a shelter for Christmas. On my 16th birthday, Walter presented me with adoption papers. "You don't have to decide right away," he said. "This changes nothing." Tommy immediately said yes, thrilled to officially become a Campbell. I hesitated, torn between my anger at my birth parents and a lingering loyalty to my original name. We compromised. Hyphenation. We became the Morris Campbell siblings, honoring our past, embracing our future. The adoption was finalized on a snowy December morning. "This is how the system is supposed to work," the judge smiled. "You've given these children the stability they deserve." High school flew by. Walter never pressured me, but I knew education was key. I chose Northwestern's business program, allowing me to live at home. Tommy's art flourished, earning him a spot at a selective arts high school. Walter's promise to teach us business wasn't what I expected. The summer after freshman year, he arranged an entry-level position at Campbell Tech. "No special treatment," he warned. "You start in the mailroom like I did." I worked my way through nearly every department. Customer service, accounting, marketing. By my senior year, I understood the company inside out. My first real contribution came when I identified an overlooked market: small businesses needing affordable cybersecurity. I developed a scaled-down subscription service, presenting it to the board myself. At 22, fresh out of college, my idea was unanimously approved. 6 months later, when the new division showed strong profits, Walter named me Vice President of Small Business Solutions. "You earned this," he said, handing me my new business card. "This has nothing to do with our relationship and everything to do with your abilities." Tommy, now 19 and studying at the Art Institute of Chicago, designed the division's logo, his talent evolving into sophisticated digital art, his canvases conveying both pain and hope from our childhood. Just as everything felt perfect, disaster struck. Walter, always so healthy at 50, was diagnosed with aggressive pancreatic cancer. 6 months to a year, the oncologist told us. Walter approached his illness with the same methodical determination he brought to business. He updated his will, organized his affairs, transitioning leadership responsibilities to his team and to me. "I have no regrets," he told me one evening, watching the sunset over Lake Michigan. "Finding you and Tommy gave my life meaning beyond business success." Those final 2 years were a heartbreaking dance. I balanced Campbell Tech with Walter's treatments. Tommy moved home, converting part of his studio into a comfortable space where Walter could rest and watch him paint. Walter exceeded the doctor's timeline through sheer will, holding on long enough to see Tommy graduate with honors and my promotion to executive vice president. But eventually, even his determination couldn't overcome the disease. In his final week, he called me to his bedside, handing me his grandfather's pocket watch. "You are the future of the Campbell name now," he whispered. "You and Tommy." I couldn't be prouder. The morning Walter passed, the sky outside was the exact blue of a perfect summer day. Tommy and I were both with him, holding his hands. There was overwhelming sadness, yes, but also a deep gratitude for the 15 years he'd given us, years that transformed us from abandoned children into confident, capable adults. "He saved us," Tommy said simply at the funeral. "Not just physically, but in every way that matters." Walter's funeral was at Chicago's largest cathedral, a testament to his impact. Hundreds attended, from corporate executives to janitors he'd always greeted by name. Tommy, now a poised 21-year-old, flew in from his new gallery position in New York, performing a haunting piano piece he'd composed. I delivered the eulogy, finding strength to speak about the man who had transformed our lives. Walter Campbell was known to most of you as a brilliant businessman, a visionary leader, a generous philanthropist, I began. To my brother and me, he was simply the person who loved us when we had been deemed unlovable. He taught us that family is not defined by blood, but by choice, by showing up day after day with unwavering support. As I concluded, returning to my seat, I noticed movement at the back of the cathedral. 2 figures, slipping in awkwardly by the last pew. Even from a distance, after 15 years, I recognized them instantly, Frank and Elaine Morris. My hands began to shake violently. Tommy noticed, following my gaze. "Is that?" he whispered, his face draining of color. I nodded, unable to speak. They looked older, of course. Frank's hair was streaked with gray, Elaine's elegance now desperate. After the service, as mourners gathered, they approached us. Elaine reached for me, arms outstretched. "Della, sweetheart," she purred, her voice thick with manufactured emotion. "How we've missed you." I stepped back, Tommy moving protectively to my side. "Don't touch me," I said quietly. Frank cleared his throat. "We came as soon as we heard. Blood is thicker than water, after all. We're still family." "Family!" Tommy's voice cracked with disbelief. "You abandoned us. You never called, never wrote. You never checked if we were alive or dead." Elaine's eyes filled with practiced tears. "You don't understand, sweetie. We were going through such difficult times. We did what we thought was best for you." "We need to talk privately," Frank insisted, glancing around at the curious onlookers. "There's so much to explain." Before I could respond, Gordon Chen, Walter's longtime attorney and friend, stepped between us. "Miss Morris Campbell, Mr. Morris Campbell," he said formally. "I don't believe these people were invited to the service." Elaine flashed what she clearly thought was a charming smile. "We are Frank and Elaine Morris, Della and Tommy's parents. We are family." "I am well aware of who you are," Gordon replied, his tone glacial. "Walter spoke of you often, though never in flattering terms." Frank puffed up his chest. "Listen here. We have every right to be with our children." Gordon's expression didn't change. "Actually, you forfeited those rights 15 years ago. However, your presence will be required on Friday morning at 10 o'clock at my office for the reading of Walter's will." Elaine's demeanor shifted instantly, her grief replaced by poorly concealed interest. "Walter included us. That is a matter to be disclosed at the appropriate time," Gordon said. "Now, if you will excuse us, the family needs privacy." As he led us away, I noticed something I'd missed. Their designer clothing was cheap, the watch a knockoff, the diamonds cubic zirconia. They were still playing the same old game, an illusion of success with no substance. That evening, in the house that now felt too empty, Tommy voiced his concern. Why would Walter include them? Why would they show up now? "They obviously heard about Walter's money," I said bitterly. "They always did have a talent for sniffing out paydays." Gordon, who had joined us for a quiet dinner, nodded. "I believe you're correct, Della. However, I would ask that you both attend the reading." Walter was very specific about who needed to be present. He had his reasons. That night, I couldn't sleep. I wandered into Walter's study, everything just as he'd left it. His reading glasses on a financial report, his favorite pen. I sat in his leather chair, inhaling the lingering scent of his cologne. "What were you planning, Walter?" I whispered to the empty room. "What final lesson do you have for us?" Friday morning dawned bright, a beautiful September day at odds with the tension in my stomach. Tommy and I arrived at Gordon's law firm early. The office, in a historic downtown building, exuded old-world wealth. Gordon greeted us, his composed demeanor a steady anchor. "They haven't arrived yet. We'll be using the main conference room." We declined coffee, too nervous. At precisely 10 o'clock, the elevator doors opened, and Frank and Elaine stepped out. They'd made an effort, newly purchased clothes, fresh hair and makeup. "Good morning," Elaine trilled, as if we were gathering for a pleasant social occasion. Gordon led us into the conference room, where several others waited. Flora, Walter's housekeeper, Martin, Campbell Tech's CFO, and Jessica, Walter's executive assistant. "Now that everyone is present, we can begin," Gordon said, taking his place at the head of the polished mahogany table. He opened a thick leather portfolio. "This is the last will and testament of Walter Edward Campbell, revised and signed 6 months ago, with all sound mental faculties, in the presence of 3 witnesses." Frank shifted impatiently. "Can we skip to the important parts? We all know Walter was loaded." Gordon regarded him coldly. "Mr. Morris, this proceeding will follow proper legal protocol. If that is inconvenient, you are welcome to wait outside." Frank subsided, but I caught the quick, excited glance he exchanged with Elaine. Gordon began with the charitable bequests, substantial endowments for education, research, and arts, and a scholarship program for children in foster care. Flora wiped tears from her eyes as Walter's lakeside cottage and a generous retirement fund were announced for her. Longtime employees received gifts. As Gordon continued, Frank grew agitated, checking his watch, whispering to Elaine, They were here for one thing only. And now, Gordon said, looking up, we come to the matter of Frank and Elaine Morris. Frank sat up straighter, nudging Elaine, who quickly arranged her features into an expression of somber attention. To my brother Frank Morris and his wife, Elaine Morris, Gordon read, I leave the sum of $1 each, along with the enclosed letter, which is to be read aloud at this time. $1! Frank exploded, his face flushing dark red. This is a joke, right? Some sick final prank. Please contain yourself, Mr. Morris, Gordon said firmly. As instructed, I will now read Walter's letter addressed to you both. He opened a sealed envelope. Frank and Elaine, Gordon read. If this letter is being read to you, it means you have done exactly what I predicted you would do. You have reappeared after 15 years of absence, drawn by the scent of money like vultures to carrion. Elaine gasped dramatically, hand over her heart. What you may not know, Gordon continued reading, is that I am fully aware of your actions, both before and after you abandoned your children. 15 years ago, exactly 3 days after leaving Della and Tommy with a stranger, you contacted me, demanding $50,000 in exchange for your silence about what you termed your part in separating us from the kids. Tommy looked at me in shock. This was news to both of us. Over the subsequent 15 years, you attempted to extort money from me no fewer than 13 times. Each time, I documented your communications, recorded your phone calls, and preserved your emails. The most recent attempt was 5 years ago, when you, Frank, threatened to tell Della and Tommy that I had paid you to disappear from their lives, a vicious lie that would have devastated them. Frank's face had drained of all color. Elaine frantically shook her head. Gordon paused, then pressed a button. A screen descended, and a video played. Frank, visibly intoxicated, in a cheap motel room. Listen, Walter, he slurred. The kids don't need to know the arrangement we had. 50 grand is nothing to you. Just a little brother helping out his family, right? But if you don't come through this time, maybe Della needs to hear how her precious uncle really got custody. The video cut to Elaine, different location, different hairstyle. Walter, be reasonable, she said smoothly. We could have fought you for custody if we wanted to. We could tell Della you kidnapped her, that we've been searching for years. Is that what you want her to think? Just wire the money like before, and this all goes away. Gordon stopped the video. The silence in the room was absolute, save for Tommy's ragged breathing. As you can see, Gordon continued, reading Walter's letter, I have kept meticulous records of your attempts at extortion. What you may not know is that your criminal activities extend beyond harassing me. My investigators have documented your involvement in multiple confidence schemes across several states, your defrauding of elderly victims, and your attempts to extort other successful business people using similar tactics to those you employed with me. Gordon looked up. I should note that all of this evidence, including financial records tracking the money Walter did provide in the early years out of concern for the children's welfare, has been provided to the FBI as of this morning. Elaine began to sob loudly. This isn't true. It was all Frank's idea. I never wanted to leave the children. Frank stood abruptly, his chair tipping backward. You can't prove any of this. It will be your word against ours. Actually, Gordon said calmly, the evidence is quite comprehensive. Walter was nothing if not thorough. He returned to the letter. To Della and Tommy, I apologize for keeping this from you. I feared the knowledge would only cause you more pain, and there seemed no benefit in sharing it. You had already suffered enough betrayal. Know that every penny they attempted to extort was documented and will now be donated to organizations supporting abandoned children, turning their greed into something positive. Tommy had tears streaming down his face. I reached for his hand, squeezing it tightly. As for the remainder of my estate, Gordon continued reading, including all shares in Campbell Tech Solutions, all real estate holdings, investment portfolios, and personal property not otherwise specifically bequeathed, I leave equally to my beloved children, Della Morris Campbell and Thomas Morris Campbell, with the full confidence that they will honor the values we have shared and continue the legacy we have built together. Gordon folded the letter and looked up. That concludes the reading of the will. At that moment, the conference room door opened, and 2 men in dark suits entered, displaying FBI badges. Frank and Elaine Morris, one agent said, "We need you to come with us. We have some questions regarding multiple fraud investigations across state lines." Frank lunged toward me, his face contorted with rage. This is your fault. You turned him against us. We're your parents. The FBI agents quickly intervened, restraining Frank as Elaine collapsed into dramatic sobs. My babies, please. Don't let them take your mother away. As they were escorted from the room, Frank still hurling accusations, Elaine still pleading, I felt a strange emptiness where I had expected satisfaction. Their true colors had been exposed, but the victory felt hollow. Gordon waited until they were gone. I apologized for the drama, but Walter insisted this happen exactly as it has. He wanted them to face consequences. Did he really pay them? Tommy asked, his voice small. In the beginning, Gordon nodded. Once, shortly after he gained custody of Della, they threatened to contest the arrangement, to drag you both through court. Walter paid them to stay away, to give you both peace. He considered it the best investment he ever made. After the FBI agents led our parents away, Tommy and I remained in the conference room. Gordon sat quietly with us. I don't understand, Tommy said finally. Why would they come back now? Did they really think Walter would leave them money? People see what they want to see, I said, staring at the empty chairs. They've spent their lives believing they deserve things they haven't earned. Gordon cleared his throat. Walter anticipated you might have questions. He left each of you a private letter. He handed us each an envelope in Walter's firm handwriting. Mine was several pages. Della, it began. If you are reading this, I am gone and you have just witnessed the confrontation with Frank and Elaine that I arranged. I hope you can forgive me for keeping their periodic reappearances from you. I made the decision to shield you from their continued attempts to profit from your pain. I want you to know that I was aware of my diagnosis 5 years ago, much earlier than I shared with you and Tommy. When I received the news, my first thought was not of my own mortality, but of what would happen to both of you when I was gone. I knew Frank and Elaine would eventually resurface, drawn by the prospect of inheritance. You may wonder why I orchestrated this public exposure rather than simply excluding them from my will. I did so because I wanted you to see them clearly, to understand beyond any doubt that their abandonment was never your fault. You deserve parents who would move heaven and earth to keep you safe. Instead, you got Frank and Elaine, who saw their own children as commodities to be traded. I have watched you grow from a frightened, wounded 13-year-old into a brilliant, compassionate woman who amazes me daily. The strength you have shown, the resilience, the determination to create good from the ashes of betrayal, these are qualities that cannot be taught. They come from within you. My greatest regret is that I will not be there to see all you will accomplish. But I leave this world confident in the knowledge that you and Tommy will continue to thrive, to support each other, and perhaps to help other children who, like yourselves, need someone to believe in them. With all my love and endless pride, Walter. I folded the letter carefully, tears blurring my vision. Across the table, Tommy was similarly affected, wiping his eyes. He knew, Tommy said softly. He knew all along they would come back for money. I nodded, unable to speak past the lump in my throat. In the weeks that followed, we learned more about Frank and Elaine's activities. The FBI investigation revealed a pattern of small-time confidence schemes across multiple states. They preyed on elderly victims, posing as charity workers, contractors, even distant relatives, always moving before they drew federal attention. The court case moved swiftly. Both accepted plea deals. Frank received 7 years in federal prison, Elaine 5, with orders for restitution they'd never be able to pay. I debated visiting them, but what would be the point? They're not suddenly going to become the parents we needed, I told Tommy. We lost our parents 15 years ago. The people in those prison cells are strangers who happen to share our DNA. Settling Walter's estate and running Campbell Tech's small business division was overwhelming. Tommy returned to New York, though we spoke daily. 3 months after the will reading, I made a decision that would have made Walter proud. I established the Walter Campbell Foundation for Family Reunification, using a significant portion of my inheritance. Its mission, to help siblings separated by the foster care system reconnect and reunite. I often thought how different my life might have been if Tommy and I had remained separated, if Walter hadn't fought so hard. My healing journey wasn't linear. Some days, anger threatened to consume me. Dr. Bennett reminded me, forgiveness isn't about absolving them. It's about freeing yourself from the burden of hatred. 6 months after Walter's death, I met Michael at a charity gala for the foundation. A structural engineer with kind eyes, he listened attentively as I shared pieces of my story. Our relationship built slowly on mutual respect. Tommy thrived in New York's art scene, his paintings featured in galleries. He used his platform to advocate for arts education for underserved youth. A year into Frank and Elaine's sentences, I received an unexpected letter from federal prison. It was Elaine, written on cheap line paper. "Della," she wrote, "I don't expect forgiveness, nor do I deserve it. The things we did to you and Tommy, to Walter, to others, were unforgivable. I write not to make excuses, but to tell you one truth. I have always been proud that you were my daughter, even when I failed completely at being your mother." I didn't respond immediately. Eventually, I decided to see her once before her release. The visit was brief, awkward. Elaine had aged dramatically. She asked about Tommy, about my work, listening with what seemed like genuine interest. She didn't ask for money or favors, didn't try to justify her actions. As I prepared to leave, she said simply, "I don't expect to be part of your life, Della. I just wanted you to know that I recognize the extraordinary person you have become despite having us as parents." "I didn't become who I am despite you," I replied, finding a truth I hadn't fully articulated before. "In some ways, it was because of you. Your abandonment led me to Walter, and he showed me what unconditional love looks like. I wouldn't trade the person I am today, and that person was shaped by every experience, including being left behind. I didn't visit Frank. Some bridges remain permanently burned, and I've made peace with that. 3 years after Walter's death, the foundation opened its first physical location, Campbell House, a welcoming space in downtown Chicago for separated siblings to reunite. During the open house, a 12-year-old girl approached me, clutching a handmade thank you card. "The foundation helped me find my little brother," she told me, eyes bright with joy. "We were separated for 3 years, but now his foster family brings him to visit me every month. They're even talking about adopting me too, so we can be together all the time." In that moment, I felt Walter's presence so strongly, it took my breath away. This was his legacy, continued through us. Not the financial empire, but the belief that family, whether born or chosen, was worth fighting for. "Family is not defined by blood," I told a reporter. "It is defined by who shows up, who stays, who makes you feel safe and valued and loved." Walter taught us that, and it's the most valuable inheritance he left us. As I build my life now, balancing my role at Campbell Tech with the Foundation's growing work, I carry Walter's lessons with me. I've learned that the deepest wounds can become wellsprings of compassion if we allow them. I've discovered that the best revenge against those who hurt us is not to cause them pain, but to create joy and purpose from what they tried to destroy. Have you ever had someone from your past reappear when they thought there was something to gain? How did you handle it? I would love to hear your stories in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share it with others who might need to hear that family is about love and choice, not just DNA. Thank you for listening to my journey, and remember that sometimes the greatest gifts come from our deepest pain.